I'm standing in front of an airlock door, staring at someone through the glass. My character is on the right side of the door. The someone I'm watching is on the wrong one. I have a decision to make. This someone is begging for their life. They're a fool, greedy and bigoted and incompetent, and a danger to everyone else on board, especially me. But this someone is promising me useful information. They're swearing they'll make up for their sins. Do I press the button to let them back inside the ship, locking them in the brig and hoping they won't find some new way to screw me down the line? Or do I press the other button, vent them into space, and live with the knowledge that I took a life in cold blood for the sake of convenience masquerading as justice? I make my choice. I press a button, and the story goes on from there. Not every choice in The Expanse, a Telltale series, is as dramatic as this airlock encounter. But even when it comes to making small decisions, everything matters. At least that's what the game wants you to believe.
I'll toast you when I've got my fortune.
Picking what to say to the members of my crew, opting for one solution over another, leaning into aggression or doing my best to play nice. All of it is recorded, and all of it has the potential to influence what happens next.
Carry on. I'm enjoying the show.
Some of this is almost certainly an illusion, especially given how seamlessly each episode moves forward from point to point. But more importantly, I don't know which decisions I make will matter and which won't. The hook of The Expanse is that it requires you to make choices in the moment with imperfect information. The twist is that whatever choice you make, the story keeps going, without giving you a chance to go back and try for a better outcome. There are game over screens, but these revolve around quicktime events or movement challenges. The real meat of the game lies in exploring the spaces around you, finding information, and bonding with your crewmates, completing optional objectives to improve their lives as you work towards each episode's main goals. You play as Kamina Drummer, a spaceborne badass working with a scavenger crew after being exiled from her home. Drummer is a fan favorite from the Expanse TV series and the James S. A. Corey novels that inspired it. The actor who played her on the show, Cara Gee, returns to reprise the character here. The game's story is set before the events of the show, which means Drummer is the only immediately familiar face in the cast. Gee's voice work lends authority to the project right out of the gate.
Ooh, if I stare at these too long, I might be the one throwing up in my soup.
She's a standout within a cast where no one is terrible, but not everyone is great.
By the end of the day, all of us are gonna be fucking rich, but mostly you and me.
And fans of the show are sure to enjoy hearing her step back into the role.
Aren't you one of those UNN pricks?
Newcomers will appreciate her presence as well, although it may take them a little while to get up to speed on the rest of the story. The Expanse doesn't waste time in explaining itself. It throws you into the thick of a bad situation and assumes you work out what's happening on your own. I've watched the show, so I was able to keep up with terms like belters, inners, and the OPA, but it's also not too hard to figure them out based on the context. A reference guide of basic terms could have been a useful addition. When Drummer isn't talking to the other members of the crew, she's exploring wrecked or abandoned spaceships. Her ship, the Artemis, is made up of scavengers who survive by, well, scavenging. She spends a lot of time moving up and down hallways, using her magnet boots to stick to metal surfaces, or using the thrusters on her spacesuit to move through freefall. The controls work well enough, and there's a surprising amount of satisfaction in exploring the space, investigating various bits and pieces, and finding the occasional loot.
I've got an intact QPU here.
The game looks great, managing a balance between cartoonish and realistic that avoids the uncanny valley, and there are plenty of wide vistas to glimpse between the corridors. In terms of gameplay, anyone who's played a Telltale game should be familiar with how this one works. For those who haven't, the conversations and occasional big moment decisions are the main mechanic, allowing you to shape the story as you move through it.
That sounds serious.
These still work well, even if they're familiar by now, and the writing, which takes its cues from the source material, does a fine job in both establishing the immediate danger Drummer is in and the larger forces that shape her life and the lives of those around her. The show distinguished itself from a lot of TV science fiction by making sure that viewers were always aware of the practical challenges of space travel. And the game makes an effort to follow along in that vein in a way that makes it clear how close to death these characters often are. The other mechanics the game tries to engage with are less successful. The combat is just a series of quicktime events, requiring you to click buttons based off of visual cues under a set time limit. The time limits are forgiving enough that it's not difficult to get through them, but while it's nice to have a break in the exploration, there's no depth to be found here. A segment that requires you to dodge around drone lasers or get instantly killed is more of a chore than anything else, and without access to quick saves or enough checkpoints, a misstep means a game over screen, and having to replay the whole segment again. It's not a new problem for Telltale, which has struggled to make its games more than just walk-and-talk affairs. The Expanse doesn't succeed on that front, and about the best you could say about its non-dialogue mechanics is that they're not as bad as they could have been. Thankfully, the writing makes up for a lot. The story takes a little while to get going, but it grows more ambitious and significantly freakier as it moves along. By the end of the third episode, I wanted to keep playing just to find out what happens next. The Expanse, a Telltale series, is a solid entry in the studio's long-running series of narrative-driven games. The episodes look great, and Cara Gee's performance as the main character is excellent, helping to recreate the feel of the television series even when most of the regular characters in the show are absent. The game struggles to find engaging mechanics outside of those dialogue scenes, relying too heavily on quicktime events and mediocre movement challenges. But the story and choices you make work well enough, these are minor faults. For more game reviews, check out what we thought of F1 Manager 2023, Double Dragon Gaiden: Rise of the Dragons, and Disney Illusion Island. And for everything else, stick with IGN.